Hey guys, it's me, the Doo Talks, and welcome to episode 8. Finally. So, what have I been up to? I've been to a few gigs, not that many because it is quite costly. Watched Mars Volta at the Manchester Apollo, that was really good. I had to leave early though, that sucks, and I missed two of my favourite songs at the end. Iron Maiden, doing that Days of Future Past tour with a mixture of like emphasis on Somewhere in Time and Senjutsu. I really like Somewhere in Time, and I love that they played a lot of songs from there. And I went to Blue Dot Festival recently, which should be named as Mud Dot Festival. Yeah, some great bands there. Glad to finally catch Pavement. Watched Dry Cleaning as well. They were fantastic live. Also, Snapped Ankles is definitely worthy a shout. And that's it for what I've been up to. Oh, Tough Mudder as well. I actually exceeded my goal. Thank you if you donated or shared or whatever. Really appreciated that. And so, what have I got for you today? Well, I've got a plethora of reviews, and I've got Dude Talk, which I've renamed from Thoughts and Stuff because I thought Thoughts and Stuff sounded a bit lame. So, yeah, let's just get into it. Okay, so what was originally called Thoughts and Stuff, I've now decided to name it as Dude Talk. Now, what I'm about to talk about will no doubt be considered controversial, but it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and that is listening to music by an artist or band that has been cancelled, and whether it's okay to do so or what you think about it. Now, I feel that the answer to that question is very obvious, but I feel like it warrants a discussion at least. Now, I'm just talking about the music, just the music in this case, not about like supporting the musicians with what they've done, because that obviously goes without saying. Now, I like to think that I'm very secular and I can separate church from state, but I would be lying if an artist did something disturbing. It wouldn't affect me because, if I listen to that, I just would feel like something. Take, for example, with what happened with Neurosis, and I kind of still listen to them from time to time, especially with like the allegations surrounding Scott Kelly. But I do admit that it was kind of made easy with a statement from the band and how they handled it, but I do still feel a little bit of iffiness from it if I'm listening to them. Even though, it was just one dude, but, Souls at Zero is a great album. And to be honest, I believe that you should just only like idolize the music and not the musicians, because let's face it, quite a few of them are potentially fucked up people. I will say this is kind of a bit of a side note. I will say the allegations of actions of people. 1, 2, 3, let's go. This is a bit of a tangent here, but I will say that I do think the allegations and actions of people are much bigger than like the cancellation of an artist, and also the artist being responsible for their actions. I know there was something, excuse me, an interview with Lingua Ignota with Anthony Fantano about the incident with the lead singer of Daughters, and how she said basically this is so much bigger than like cancelling Daughters. It's about the lead singer taking responsibility and holding himself accountable, which I remember his response to that was completely the opposite. And following from that, and this is kind of a bit like worrying because I feel like that was faded. That story was like at least a couple of years old. And at a tangent last year, I remember seeing something in like the group was that quite a few people were wearing Daughters t-shirts, and someone confronted them, why are you wearing a Daughters t-shirt? Did you know what happened? And like, I think the person responded like, yeah, I didn't know. Now, merch, I feel like this adds on to what I'm trying to say. I feel like, and I speak from experience here, I awkwardly bought a Holy Raw t-shirt like a week before all like the shit blew up, you know, with the allegations with the founder of it, with very disturbing, very awful, sickening things that he did. And I was like, oh shit. Now, I've never actually worn it, and I don't really intend to. I keep meaning to get some like masking tape over the Holy Raw thing, and like, because it had Alan Partridge on it, and you know, Alan Partridge is amazing. And maybe like, if you like that thing, it would be okay to wear it, but it's a fact that I think it can be seen as like you're supporting the actions rather than just like, listen, you know, because, oh, I like this album, such and such, or, you know, how I say, oh, I like it because of Alan Partridge. But let's stop this, and before it gets all twisted and people might misunderstand, let's underline and sum up. My opinions are, to sum up, idolise the music, not the musicians. If you want to listen to the music or wear the merch, do so, but don't be surprised that you get called out for it, and if someone like goes, why are you doing that? And I will say, like, I feel like this is more for disturbing actions that I'm more bothered with. I'm not too fussed with like some like different political views. I feel like there should be for discussion rather than just like cancelling someone because they've got a different view to you. So, first up, I'm going to be talking about the debut album from Grub Nap, which is called Godpile. It's out now through Human Worth Records. Grub Nap features members from June and Cattle, rest in peace. Grub Nap are a two-piece band from Leeds, and their music has been described as sludgecore. However, their own description really tickled me when I read it, so I'm just gonna read it out to you guys. They say it's sludgecore for people with short attention spans and no interest in wizards or flag waving. Grub Nap consists of two members, as I said before, a two-piece band. D. Barter on guitar and vocals, and S. Miles on drums and vocals as well. The album Godpile was recorded and mastered by Tom Goodall and Russ Halden at Home Studio. Okay, so with that brief intro out the way, let's just get into it. So we got the openings. So for those who want to know, Godpile consists of 6 tracks and clocks in at 13 minutes and 17 seconds. So let's start like we always do with the opening song, which is called Closerer, which makes its presence known immediately. You know exactly what you're getting with this on your first listen. You got the heavy distorted riff, the mixture of screams and growls from both vocalists, and I do love a good scream and growl combo. But it's more or less kept straight to the point. There's no pissing around from these guys. And from listening to Closer, I couldn't help but there was a vibe that was quite similar to Conjurer's early stuff when they started. It's kind of like the way they use the sludgy riffs, but they make it seem quite fast as well. Sticky Back Uranium has a similar vibe to Closer as well. Sludgy as hell, but straight to the point. The Daily Fet is their fast song, even though I described the other two songs as fast, but this is their fast song. The pace is much more quicker and more aggressive. The energy is really stepped up from the first two songs and even has time for a breakdown. Here's a clip. Personally, I think that Tin Banshee is the strongest song on the album. Has a mixture of it all, the chugging riffs, the faster moments, and the drum fills. Plus, there's the harmony of the two vocalists, which I really like. Now, the album as a whole feels like it was recorded in a barrage of filth. and with a name like Grub Nap, I would expect nothing less from these guys. Every time I listen to the album, I definitely want to take a shower afterwards, and I'm all for it. Okay, nitpicks. I've only just got one. I love the way that it was recorded, but sometimes all you can hear is the feedback, which I feel overtakes the riffs. Now, I think a lot of people who watch this, well, not a lot of people, to be honest, only a few, to the point, I'm just saying that you're probably screaming at me saying, well, that is the point of it. The feedback is to make you feel overwhelmed, it's meant to make it sound heavier, which I get. Okay, packs a punch with 6 songs that are all killer and no filler. It wastes no time in getting your attention. And if you like your sludgecore with only a little bit of sludge, I think you'll like this. So, yep, another album that I am very late to the party on, and I'm talking about the new album from Trevor's Head, which is called A View From Below, and it's out now through APF Records. So, Trevor's Head are a 3-piece band from Red Hill, featuring Aaron Strachan on bass, synth and vocals, Roger Atkins on guitar and vocals, and Matt Ainsworth on drums, synth, flute and vocals. A View From Below follows from their last release, which was called Summer Holiday and came out all the way back in 2018. And A View From Below was recorded by Sam Shredder at the Crow's Nest. So that was a very, very brief intro, so let's just get into it, yeah? So for those who want to know, A View From Below consists of 8 tracks and clocks in at 37 minutes. And we'll start off as good as any with the first track, which is Call of the Deep. And I was like, is this stoner? Is it grunge? Or is it prog? But I came to the conclusion that it was all of them and neither of them, if that makes sense. So on this song you got like the fuzzy riffs of like the stoner side, the experimental side with the prog, and the roughness of grunge. The first riff on Call of the Deep means business, and it slows down for a bit and then intersperses brief moments of heaviness and then carries back with much more mellower moments. And the singing, the vocals feel very eccentric, kind of like Frank Zappa. And it finishes off with a solo and a chorus that is bound to live in your head rent-free. So it was my impression, especially from the first song, that they just don't rely on power chords. They bring a lot of complexity to the sound that makes them sound quite unique in ways. The next song, Under My Skin, starts off being straightforward. You got the riff that locks you in and the chorus that really wants to live inside your head. But I love the build up to that chorus as it starts getting louder and louder, and then the tempo changes up midway just to kind of kick the rug off from your feet. And for a moment it then ventures into much more like psychedelic territory. And this song, to be honest, could have just been like the first 2 minutes. However, it's given so much more than just being a catchy song with a song just to, rock out to. Speaking of much more straightforward songs, I feel like Great Fang is their most conventional song, so to speak, and could be considered their fast song. I like the singing on this track. It sounds really earnest with the harmony of the usage of the vocalist and the build up to much more like harsher vocals which sound really emotive. So on a side note with Great Fang, listening to it was reminding me so much of like ZZ Top, and that's a band I've not listened to for a very long time. But honestly, it really did remind me of ZZ Top. Elio is a definite changing pace, definitely tapping more into the progressive side. The instruments have a floaty, echoey sound to them, and the inclusion of string instruments with like the acoustic guitar and a violin add to it. Plus there's the flute as well that just gives it that 1970s music feel. Very trippy. It's getting your head in the clouds. However, they do tilt to a more heavier side past the halfway mark. Rumspringa is on the more heavier side of things but feels really playful, and there's even cowbell involved. What Got Stuck starts off with some serious Mastodon vibes with a chugging primal riff. I'm going to play an example for you here. And as we know, when we think they're one way, these guys go off script and burn off a solo right at the end. And speaking of this, the second half of this album is definitely the heaviest side, especially with songs like A True Gentleman using much more harsher vocals. And then to note about this, the song channels a bit of like Jerry Cantrell there towards the end of that song. So what does stand out for me on this album? It would just genuinely would have to be the riffs for sure. As I said before, it's not just relying on power chords and atmosphere. They've got a quite bit of technical prowess and they're not afraid to experiment in their songs as well. Nitpicks. I really like the song Elio. The first half of the song is really sublime. However, I just don't think it needed that second half with the layer of feedback. It just clouds over the solo towards the end of the song and just feels a bit unnecessary in that opinion. It could have just been constrained to the first part of the song. Overall, A View From Below is a solid album with some great ideas that may breathe fresh air into all that stoner fatigue that you may or may not have. However, it's so much more than that. It blends technical prowess and heaviness with some really eccentric ideas that work really well. It definitely hits more than it misses and has something for everyone. So, next up, I'm going to be talking about the third album from King Howl, which is called Homecoming, and it's out now through Electric Valley Records. King Howl are a 5-piece heavy psych band from Cagliari, really hope I've got that right, in Sardinia, and consists of Diego Pani on vocals and harmonica, Marco Antagonista on guitars, Alessandro Cao on bass, and Alessandro Seda on drums. King Howl incorporates many themes into their work, and the main theme for the album Homecoming revolves around the concept of a young protagonist who escapes from a rural setting and starts a journey with various encounters and challenges. Apparently, some of the inspiration taken from the album is from the novel by James Anderson called The Never-Ending Open Desert Dinner. The album was recorded in Sardinia by Roberto Massis and Willy Cuckoo and mixed by Nen Baratu and Richard Behrens in Big Snuff Studio in Berlin. So, with that intro out the way, let's just get into it. Okay, so for those who want to know, Homecoming consists of 11 songs and clocks in at around 40 minutes. So, start with the opening track, which is called the Rooster. The first thing you get is like an earful of harmonica and a fuzzy riff, while very thick maintains this upbeat energy of the whole song. It's very blues rock sounding with a little bit of a soulful kick to it. Like I said before, it is very upbeat and you'd be hard pressed not to dance along to this. Definite southern rock vibes from listening to the song, and it was reminding me so much of Molly Hatchet. Here's a little bit of a clip for you. From the Cradle has more of a modern influence it thrown in the mix, with having more desert rock vibes but still keeping that blues influence. It's a very short song, but it's made memorable with the riffs used on the song and the vocals, which make the song sound really catchy. Speaking of vocals, Diego has a really soulful voice that is both soothing and commanding. While it never goes too low or too high, there's a fair bit of power in his voice, plus he can really shred the harmonica. So, talking about the album musically as a whole, as I've mentioned, the guitars on the album deliver a mixture of like fuzzy stoner, desert rock, kind of similar to the vibes of early Queens of the Stone Age and Caius, but there's also a mixture of like blues licks and just like vibes of southern rock. The song John Henry Days is more back to the blues southern rock vibes with the harmonica shredding. It's a bit more slower pace than the other songs, but it does has its moments when the guitars finally cut loose a bit. Motor Sounds, for me, is one of the strongest songs on the album. It's like they've perfectly captured the vibe of the 70s. It feels authentic without having the band to copy someone else's homework, if you know what I mean. The song has it all, the catchy lyrics and the riffs as well, not to mention a solo, and you know me, I love a solo. The song Slowly Coming Down, the name for this song is really appropriate as the band's psychedelic influences are much more visible on here. I'm just going to play you an example. So back to the album as a whole, there's a whole variety of influences on this album that are well worn on their sleeves, and they pull it off remarkably well. And you might think they're missing something like an organ on this record. Well, fear not, the Great Blue Heron has you covered on that. Also, they do a cover of Rolling Stone's Gimme Shelter to add to the vibe, and it's a pretty decent cover which fits well into the album without sounding too much like a sore thumb on the record. Nitpicks. My favourite part, not. I really like the start of Jupiter, but I felt towards the end of the song they were just dragging it out a bit. It just felt like stretched too thin. I think some of the mix on the album as well, while not that noticeable, makes the vocals sound quiet in places. And I noticed this on the previous nitpick with Jupiter. However, this is a very, very small complaint. Lastly, this might just be me with a very, very short attention span, but I feel like they could have just trimmed the fat on this record just a teeny bit, especially with the second half of the album. While the songs are great, and I'm not saying that they're not, I just feel like with 11 tracks they could have just been cut down, and some of them could have just been like interesting B-sides. My overall opinion is that I really like the vibe of the album. Yes, I know I've said vibe a lot on this review. If you're a fan of bands like Black Crowes, Left Lane Cruiser, early Queens of the Stone Age, and obviously Caius, I think you'll love this album. The album is well rounded with some really strong songs that will hook you in and make you want to dance a little bit. Now, if you're wondering why this video was delayed so much, it was because I wanted to fit this album in, and it's an album that I've been really excited to talk about. It's a debut album from Mairu called Soul Cultus. It's out on July the 28th through Trepanation Records. If you've been following me for a very long time, chances are you might remember that Mairu were one of the first bands that I reviewed. And I remember the first release that they brought out, and I was actually literally blown away by it. So I was really excited to talk about this. So yeah, Mairu are a 4-piece post-metal band from like the Liverpool, Mersey, Wigan area. And they've recorded the album in the Arch in Southport, and they consist of 4 members, and that is Alan Coltrane on guitar, piano and vocals, Ben Davis on drums and synths, Dan Hunt on bass and vocals, and Ant Herlock on guitar and vocals. I don't think I need to spend any more time on the intro on this, I just want to get into it, so let's fucking do that. First things first, the thing that I've noticed about Mairu is that they make an amazing first impression, and this is evident with the opening song, Torchbearer. The song really draws me in like they did with their first release. The song like really blends both metal influences and post-rock influences, and they make full use of crescendos, and then there's like heavier chugging riffs as well. Not to mention there is vocals as well, which have this loud bellowing feel, and there's a bit of growls there as well. But as loud as they are and evident that they're there, I feel like they're not the main focus of the song. The riffs are. The start of Perihelion sees them experiment with like subtle use of electronics at the start. There's also like an inclusion of like this very springy, crunchy bass sound, which I'm an absolute fan of. There's more of a vibe of post-rock on this song here, and I felt like it was similar to the vibes of like bands like Mono. Still like delicate sounding, but there's like an intense energy in the song as well. So there's a little bit of an interlude which is called Inter Alia. Very short lived, but however it's got a little bit of a piano and a saxophone. This leads off into Wild Darkened Eyes, which they released quite a while back, and I think this is their most heaviest song on the album. They've got growls, harsh vocals, and the riffs really add to this intense atmosphere on the song. I'm just going to play you a clip for you. Excuse me. The song Scattered Dust starts off with a riff that wouldn't feel out of place on a Pallbearer record. It does feel on this song that there's a constant build-up, but the places it takes you to when it finally gets you there is definitely worth the patience. And one of those parts is where there's like a huge shift in tempo towards the end of the track, and that it definitely pays off. And then there's another interlude which is called Per Alia. It's a brief interlude with like some synths, and then there's like a brief use of sax. And then there's Atar, which is very rhythmic. There's a lot more emphasis on the drums, and there's some nice interesting ideas on this song, and as it feels more experimental. Alright, now on to nitpicks. I've only a couple. The song The Scattered Dust feels like after all the build-up and places it takes you, it just ends on a whimper, so it's a little bit anticlimactic. Also, the interludes have some really cool ideas, but I wish they were explored a bit more and like explored more on the songs. I know they do it in a couple of songs, but I just wish they build on it just that much further. Okay, so my overall opinion about Soul Cultus. Mairu have taken what made their first release so great and expanded on it almost tenfold. The album has a huge sound to it that will make you want to listen to it on repeat to take it all in and just like discover new things about the record like I did. Okay, so that was me with episode 8. Have you checked out any of the bands that I've talked about today? Please let me know what you thought about them down below in the comments section. Like always, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. It really helps out. Just want to quickly plug my socials. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I'll be including links to them if you want to give me a like and a follow. I'm also got Buy Me a Coffee if you want to donate some money my way. I'm not asking a lot, I'm just asking some chump change for the chump here. And that is it from me. I've been the Dude Who Talks. You guys are fucking awesome as always. I'll see you soon.